When you're in a debate and your agenda, your mission is to search for the truth, you can't lose because you're not trying to win, and it puts you in an incredibly strong position. Not an incredibly strong position over your opponent, because they're not your opponent. There's no opponents here. The strength you have is the possibility of discovering further truth.
Oh my God, a new Chris Dangerfield video just came out. I can't wait to watch it.
Alright there people, I've got loads of work to do today, so what I thought I'd do is ignore all of that and make a video. Now this is a really important video. I've probably made over the decade or so that I've been doing this channel, ouch, probably about 4 or 5 videos about truth, about being honest with yourself, but more importantly, and also it's part of the same thing, with other people, and practically in conversation. I'm going to start by reading some quotes. The truth does not change according to our ability to stomach it. That's Flannery O'Connor. No legacy is so rich as honesty. Old Billy Shakespeare. The truth will set you free, but first it will piss you off. Now that is Gloria Steinem, but it's still a good quote. If you tell the truth, you don't have to remember anything. Mark Twain. It's perfect, it's beautiful. And this from Tommy Jefferson. Honesty is the first chapter in the book of wisdom. Now, stay with me because this won't go where you think it might. But being honest in conversation is especially valuable in the art of seduction. Pulling people is essentially what I mean. And I'll tell you why. Because all conversation is seduction. Talking to a geezer at the bus stop. There's an element of seduction. Why is that? Because you want to be attractive. You want them to find you interesting. You don't want to be the boring bloke who oh, I saw that geezer so-and-so today. Then he go on. And it's just boring. Where someone can come up to you with one line of truth and change your life. That's the power. That's the power of reality. And reality is the mirror reality is the mirror in which truth has to prove itself. I mean, we could go down an alley of falsification here, but we might be here for a lot longer. But look into falsification and you'll understand why truth is held up to the standard of reality. I mean, it's wonderful. It's absolutely wonderful. That quote about, I can't remember exactly what is it. If you tell the truth, you don't have to remember anything. You know when you're lying. Remember being a kid and lying. I remember once I took one of my old man's razor blades to school. I didn't even know what it was. I just knew it was naughty. I had it in my pocket. I was fiddling around with it. And then after assembly, I took my hand out of my pocket and it was just like claret, just looked like a horror film. What have you done? Now, the first thing I couldn't do was tell the truth, which is what I should have done. But there were consequences to that. Well, I thought there would be. I'd have probably been just said, I nearly cut my fingers off. I'd have probably been treated quite nicely and told that these are really dangerous. And next time, Dad, don't put them just there on top of the cistern where I look at them every day. Blaming my dad. Anyway, so I made up some lie that I picked up a bit of glass. They wanted to know where I found it. I had to show them. I had to find this alleyway. And it was like a snowball rolling down an hill, but just a lie ball. And there's problems with lie balls. They're full of holes and they break. And You know, this. If you look at a court of law, that's essentially what it is. If someone's lying, just keep asking them questions. That's what they do. Just get to the point where they can't quite fill in all the gaps, because you need to be an absolute genius to maintain a dishonest story. I mean, look how long it takes a writer to write a book and go through it and, you know, go over it and all that. You know, and even then, readers have this concept of a suspension of disbelief so that they can get something out of it. You know, I know this isn't true. I'll just pretend. I'll just, you know, I will lower my critical faculties a bit and just sort of, yeah, you know, there's no such thing as dragons, but it's quite exciting if you pretend there are. So take that to your existence. You know, if you offend someone by telling the truth, your way out of that is to stay with the truth. They might say, do you understand how offensive that is? And you can say, no. If you don't, and you probably don't, very hard to understand how someone else has been offended, you can say, no, I don't. The problem is, if it's true, which I believe it is, your offence isn't really what we're talking about. If you want to have a conversation about you being offended, we could do that, but we were talking about this, and in the context of this conversation, the truth of that statement is what's important, not how offended you are. You know, the truth is on your side. It's like the best car ever. You get in it and you just stick to the rules of the vehicle, and it will save you, it will protect you. There's a quote often wrongly attributed to Goethe. It was actually Basil King, and I'm going to add a little bit to it, but it's something like, and it's a quote said to writers: be brave, be bold, and mighty powers from on high will protect you. And I heard it said in a writer's workshop. I didn't attend one of those things. I just want to get that out of the way. I was watching it on YouTube, which maybe that's attending. But Jack Grapes, if you're a writer, check out Jack Grapes. Check out his transformative line, which is about finding truth. Say a line about yourself that begins with I, like just a statement. I am not feeling great. And then he just digs deeper, gets nearer and nearer the truth. And in this little workshop where he's doing it with the woman who's interviewing him, she says, what's a transformative line? He says, well, it's where you take a statement and you massage it until you get to the truth. And he does it with her. It's quite remarkable. I'll put a link. Please watch it. And he gets to this bit. She starts off saying something like, oh, I'm a bit bored with going to the COVID clinic or something ridiculous. And he keeps keeping her in line. He keeps nudging her back in the direction of truth. And it gets to a point where she goes, oh. And he says, that's it. And she's sort of surprised and confused. He said, did you feel that? He said, because I did. And he says, look, you got tears in your eyes. You know, the camera should be on you now. He said, but if you can write from there, from that point where you went, oh, right down in the stomach, right where the pain sits. If you can write your character, not for the whole book, but for transformative lines, when a character changes, when something happens to them which makes them a different person, which is what we want from characters, which is what we want. That happens to us in life anyway. You know, something horrific might happen to you, something joyous might happen to you. But the reality is that will change you. And he says if you can write from that feeling, the reader will feel that. And they're the kind of books that people say to people, oh, you've got to read this. You know that's the kind of material that makes people want to share it with other people, because the reader can identify with that. And we live in a world of politeness, and we live in a world where we're tactful, and we live in a world where we try and communicate on the surface because everything's good. Everything's great. No, it's fine, it's fine. Even when it's not, we make a joke out of it. We play the joker role. How are you? Absolutely terrible. Job's awful, relationships a mess, I'm skint, and my health's going down the pan. And your mate just sort of says, back to normal then. High five. But when you can identify with something that the speaker or the writer wrote from a place of, the reality, the truth of the situation, you can identify with that, and that's a rarity. And so people want to share things like that. It's hard to be honest all the time. Everyone lies. Everyone's deceptive. People are always trying to deceive people. Look out for it. Measure your day to day. Look out for the moments where you're deceptive. Look out for the moments where you're just plain lying. They will rack up. It won't be one or two. I reckon well, give it a go. But when we're talking about important things, when we're talking about things that mean something to us, when we're talking to someone who we care about, when we're talking to someone who we're going to respect enough to try and maintain the limits, weirdly, of truth, do it. Actually do it. Be brave. Be bold. And mighty forces from on high will protect you. And going back, the reason I brought up that story, it turns out the woman, when she explains to Jack Grapes why she went, it turns out that someone in her life, there was a big family lie. And it turned out she wasn't who she thought she was. And she doesn't go into the details, but something like, her dad wasn't her dad, or her mum wasn't her mum, or she was adopted, one of the sort of classics of of wonderful family life. And he says, can you talk about it now? She says, well, I don't want to get in trouble. And that's when he says that, be bold, be brave. Because there's that fear of getting in trouble. And writers, I'm not talking about writing here. Well, I am, clearly. But there is a fear of getting in trouble when you're being honest. You don't want to upset people. You don't want to offend people. You don't want to pull the rug out of someone's version of reality. But trust me, because when you do it, you will seduce them. Not because you're great, not because you're marvelous, not because you're essential, but because truth is great, truth is marvelous, and truth is essential.